News!
Okay, we'll start with this. Back and forth between veteran boxing scribe Dan Rafael and Ryan Garcia over his doping case. Dan reacted to some recent comments Ryan made, saying, "Bill is not his real dad, I'm his real dad. When you get an ass whooping like that from pillar to pillar, I'm his real dad, and that's facts." To which Dan responded, "Juiced up on peds, 4+ pounds over the contracted weight, and it was still a close fight points-wise, even with the knockdowns, but okay." All of which is true that outside of the rounds where Ryan scored a knockdown, there were actually rounds that Heaven Daney picked up, in spite of all the advantages Ryan had going in. Ryan, who responded by saying, "How stupid can you be, Dan? Actually think for once. Juiced up on peds is so inaccurate. For you as a reporter, it's sad. I wasn't 4+ pounds over the weight. He accepted the money because I was over, and he said, and I quote, it didn't matter, he would still win. And lastly, the ref was saving him in there. Yeah, you are a fat hater that can't help it. You lost your touch, Dan. It's quite sad these days to see what you've become." Dan didn't lie about anything, though. That fight between Devin and Ryan was supposed to be for Devin's 140-pound title. The reason Ryan didn't win it, didn't get to fight for it, not just because he tested positive for Osterin, but because he came in 4 pounds over. Otherwise, the title would have been on the line. Danu responded by saying, "Blah, blah, blah, Devin Haney is a 3-weight world champion, including undisputed, and didn't have to cheat. Your Osterin levels were 60 times allowable in New York. Maybe Devin dropped by you 3 times, but kept getting up, which is more than you did against Tank. I may be fat, but I'm no sucker for your propaganda. You're still sore. I was 100% accurate on every single thing I reported about your positive drug test that you said I lied about. Have a blessed day." To which Ryan responded, "I'm sorry, you aren't accurate. Did you report that the supplement had traces of Osterin in them? You didn't because you didn't care about that part. It's just sad that because of my political views, and when I was speaking about children sex trafficking, you started being a bitch towards me. Fucking weirdo. You lost all credibility. Don't really matter. Nobody listens to your takes anyways, and I wonder fucking why. Barely got a job. Head ass." Wait a minute, so he's back to blaming the Osterin? Didn't he tell that streamer, Neon, that it was because they tainted his samples, that VADA sabotaged him, mishandled his supplements? That's what he was saying not but a few days ago, so that a few days later, he can go back to blaming the supplements? Listen, it can't be both. It can't be that you inadvertently took tainted supplements and that's why your samples came back positive, but at the same time VADA sabotaged you. That doesn't make any sense, like most of what comes from Ryan Garcia. And I don't know what he's talking about because it was never proven that the supplements were tainted to begin with. The people at NutraBio refuted Ryan Garcia's claims, and he himself did not follow the proper protocol to prove that the supplements were in fact tainted. He sent an unsealed container to be analyzed, and that's not how you clear your name. You're supposed to get the lot number of the container you bought and trace it back to other containers with that same lot number, unsealed, to prove that it's a bad batch and it's tainted. What Ryan did was send an unsealed container, I guess what was supposed to be his container. The reason that violates the protocol is what you're sending, you could have put the Osterin in there yourself to strengthen your case. By sending them an unsealed container, that doesn't prove that you got a bad batch or that the supplements were tainted. You've got to send them a sealed container with the same lot number as the one that you bought to prove that the whole batch is bad. That's not what Ryan did. He didn't clear his name. If he had, he wouldn't have got suspended. Now, for a boxer who actually did clear his name by proving he got a bad batch, look no further than Dillian Whyte. He did it the right way, went through the proper protocols, and was allowed to resume his boxing career with no suspension. Ryan, if you would have cleared your name and if it were the way you said it was, you would have never got suspended. And it is as simple as that. The fact that his story keeps changing over a year out from the initial incident, it's further indication that Ryan is just lying. Lying because he knows he can get away with it. Most of the people that follow him, they don't know about any of this stuff, and the ones that do, they don't care. And I don't say any of this for love of Devin Haney. By now, you guys know that there are a lot of fighters I would rather watch
than Devin Haney, but the facts are what the facts are. It was never proven that Ryan's supplements were tainted because he broke protocol, and he himself started blaming VADA.
It's a different explanation saying that VADA mishandled your samples in transit, and that's why they came back dirty. You're basically blaming them. So is it the supplements or is it VADA? And if it were VADA, why does the New York State Athletic Commission sample that was separate from VADA's samples, why did that one have Osterin in it too?
Because Ryan's full of shit.
Whenever this comes up, everybody goes silent. That there was a separate sample in the care of the New York State Athletic Commission, and that one had Osterin in it the same as the others. Dan Rafael highlighted a very good point, that even with all the advantages that Ryan had going in, missing the weight by about 4 pounds, loaded up with Osterin, he wasn't able to stop Devin Haney. Yeah, he knocked him down 3 times, and Devin got up 3 times.
Give a better boxer than Ryan those same advantages, 4 pounds over the contracted weight, loaded with banned substances, and I don't think Devin gets up. But because Ryan is so shit, because Ryan sucks, even with those advantages, he wasn't able to stop Devin.
Further evidence that Ryan only won that fight because of those advantages, look at how he looked with Rolly. Look at what happened.
Supposed to be a coincidence that when you were in the hot seat and under a microscope, not free to use your Osterin, you looked flat. You looked like dog shit.
You fucking lost to Rolly Romero.
Listen, you guys know what I think about banned substances in the sport of boxing. I think at a certain level, everybody's doping. The men, the women. So I'm not hung up on peds. I'm hung up on the inconsistencies in Ryan's story. I'm hung up on how stupid this kid is.
You know the smartest thing he could do is shut the fuck up. Stop trying to gloat over what is a tainted victory, a tainted win. You got suspended for a reason, you idiot. You know that all of this is being recorded, screenshotted. We've seen how many times your story has changed.
This is the digital era. We can play it all back for you. So the smartest thing you can do is just shut the fuck up.
Shut up already.
Because a better boxer with the same advantages that you had over Devin going in would have finished the job. Technically, you didn't.
In men's light heavyweight news, standout amateur Ben Whittaker is set to make his matchroom debut this weekend against Benjamin Gavazi. Ben promised to show why he's nicknamed the Surgeon after a successful weigh-in before his matchroom bout live on DAZN against Benjamin Gavazi Saturday night. The Andy Lee-trained light heavyweight will make his second appearance of the year, some 7 months after breezing beyond Liam Cameron in their heavily anticipated rematch.
Granted that Ben won the rematch, the second fight, in dominant fashion, the fact that he needed a second fight for that is troubling.
And you know, he's with Matchroom now, which I think like to match their boys and girls a lot tougher than Ben Shalom and the people over there at Boxer. So if Ben Whittaker is a world-class operator, we're gonna find out. Reinvigorated by the Eddie Hearn seal of approval after some bittersweet times aligned with Ben Shalom and Boxer, Germany's Gavazi will fancy a chance to put the hometown hero under duress and spring an upset as he steadily builds up his competition towards world level. Looking good, aren't I? Whittaker, 9-0 with 1 draw and 6 knockouts, quipped to Matchroom's Jamie Moore after flexing for the cameras, displaying his svelte physique. I worked out in Ireland. I'm feeling good and ready to put on a show. I knew this was going to come. Now it's showtime. He's showing good energy, coming to fight. Now I show why I'm the surgeon. I'm a perfectionist, going to break him down and look good doing it.
The main focus for me in what is Ben Whittaker's Matchroom debut is I really don't want to see him playing with his food, out there showboating. It makes him hard to read, hard to understand when he's in there goofing off instead of just finishing the job, out of the amateurs and into the pros. When I saw Katie Taylor's first 2 or 3 fights, I knew right away that this fighter has all the makings of a world-class operator, and it was the same with Keyshawn Davis and other blue-chip prospects out of the amateurs into the pros, just 2 or 3 fights in.
With Ben, it's still a mystery because he spent so much time under the hot lights goofing off and playing around that yes, you're at least better than the professional heavy bags Ben Shalom has matched you against, which is why you can get away with goofing off that much. You are at least better than them.
But that much we knew already. That much we knew before the opening bell sounded. This early in a fighter's career, they're not intended to match you too tough.
Not for learning fights. So when you're spending that much time goofing off in what are supposed to be learning fights, it just communicates arrogance.
Silliness.
He's fighting Benjamin Gavazi of Germany, who's got a lot more pro fights than he does. 20
to Ben's 10.
For what is supposed to be a vacant WBC silver title, a secondary title that lines you up to eventually fight for the full one. Ranked at number 1 right now is former undisputed champion Artur Beterbiev, and I don't think for a second Eddie wants to put Ben in there with Beterbiev. Not now and not later. There's been a lot of fallout as a result of David Benavidez's recent announcement that his next fight will be at cruiserweight, even though he's WBC light heavyweight champion. Most are interpreting this as him leaving the division. When a male fighter goes up, they seldom ever come back down. So it's conceivable that in a not-so-distant future, David's gonna drop the belt. It might go to Artur. If it goes to Artur,
does Ben Whittaker keep going up the WBC route, or does Eddie guide him in a different direction? Because this fight, this weekend, is for a WBC silver title.
All I can tell you about Ben Whittaker is that he's got good physical dimensions for the weight, standing in at about 6'3", good reach.
Decent enough speed to at least play with the professional punching bags he's been matched with so far, though not much else. And him being an Olympian doesn't impress me. That doesn't tell me that he's world class, because Joshua Buatsi was an Olympian. Matthew Bowder-Leak was an Olympian.
Last few cycles of Olympians out of the amateurs and into the pros have not been all that impressive. I'm talking about the recent cycles. Tony Yoka, his then ex-girlfriend, Estelle Mosley.
Those two won the gold in the Olympics, but in the pros, they haven't been as successful.
Ben Whittaker, like them, is an Olympian, but just being an Olympian, that doesn't tell the story. And so what I want to see from Ben this weekend, which might be asking too much given his charismatic and flamboyant persona, is a no-nonsense approach to winning a boxing match. Save the goofing off, save the showboating for when you're fighting someone with a pulse, and just get this guy out of there, if you can.
Don't prolong it. Finish your food.
And save the showboating for when you're in there with someone credible. That way, it can at least be impressive. The way it reads now, you're just wasting the audience's time. Elsewhere in the light heavyweight division, earlier this week, former champion Artur Beterbiev said via his social media, "All of you asked me about Benavidez versus Yarde. I saw it. Nothing new for me. We too could have had something better, isn't it?"
Saying what we're all thinking, that a fight between Artur Beterbiev and David Benavidez would have been many times better than the fight he just had with Anthony Yarde, and the fight that he's about to have with Zurdo Ramirez.
Even if you like the Zurdo Ramirez fight, and I actually do, I think that's going to be a decent-looking fight when the time comes, the Beterbiev fight would have been better.
Sentiment echoed by veteran promoter Lou Dembella, who said, "I feel cheated that we won't see Benavidez against the two light heavyweights. Much more interesting fights than Zurdo or Dream heavyweight stuff. In my humble opinion, David beats Zurdo and Opataya. Okay, go at an old Usyk,
assuming that Usyk is even still around. And did he just say that he thinks David beats Jai?
I'd rather see Artur or Bivol go up to cruiser." Veteran boxing scribe Sean Zattel said, "Totally agreed on Benavidez, Bivol, and Beterbiev, Lou. Those are the fights. That's not to say that Zurdo won't be fun, but can he really get back to 175 after that?"
Sean's not stupid, and neither is Lou. They both know the answer to what seems a rhetorical question. A guy who moves up from 175 all the way up to cruiser is not likely to then drop back down to light heavy, least of all if he actually wins the fight with Zurdo and becomes a unified champion. Veteran boxing scribe Mike Coppinger said, "Would much rather see Benavidez fight Beterbiev than Zurdo. We all know what will happen in the Zurdo fight. Beterbiev-Benavidez is one of the best fights you can make in boxing."
I agree. What I look at is another clear example of how the people in boxing deprive you of what you want, what they know you want, and instead serve you up substitutes expecting you to be happy, expecting you to just take it.
Charging you extra while they do it, because the Zurdo fight is not going to be a regular fight as part of the regular schedule. You can expect that to be a pay-per-view.
The Beterbiev fight likely would have been one too, but that one would have been better. That would have been a fight that you don't mind paying for so much. Whereas with Zurdo, I don't know how cheesed people are about that fight. I'm skeptical as to how many are going to buy it. And because of that, I'm actually skeptical, how much money does David really stand to make by moving all the way up to cruiser and leaving the Bivol and Beterbiev fight behind, knowing that Turkey would have paid for the both of those fights?
It was in March of this year when he expressed his interest in putting David Benavidez in the ring with either Dimitri or Artur. Dimitri's not available right now, but Artur is.
Yeah, but Artur doesn't have a belt.
Well, neither did Anthony Yarde, and David didn't have a problem fighting him, so why should he have a problem fighting Artur? More rhetorical questions that we all already know the answers to. A fight with Artur, even at his age, is widely perceived as being a lot more dangerous than a fight with Zurdo.
It's because of that equalizer. It's because Artur Beterbiev is arguably one of the biggest punchers the light heavyweight division has ever seen, and certainly the biggest puncher there today.
Bigger than David. How do I know? They fought the same guy in Alexander Vazdik, and when Artur Beterbiev fought a younger version of that fighter, he beat him into submission many years later.
When he's older and he's faded, David fights him and fights him to a decision. He didn't stop him, he didn't drop him like Artur did.
Another common opponent in Anthony Yarde, Artur Beterbiev stopped him before David Benavidez, so if David swoops in afterwards and does it in less time,
Sergey Kovalev stopping him and Artur stopping him might have something to do with that. He's been knocked out 2 times already. And let's not pretend that Turkey paid for that particular opponent for no reason. Yarde is a common opponent between you and Artur. The reason he made that fight was as build-up for what could have been a Beterbiev fight. Artur Beterbiev, who's free right now.
You think he matched him against Anthony Yarde for no reason? That was intended to be build-up for a Beterbiev fight that now we're not gonna get. There's no guarantee that either Artur or Dimitri will move up from light heavy to cruiser. Dimitri's always been a very lean light heavyweight. He's not a big guy. And Artur, what's he, 40 years old? How much longer do you think he has left to where here and now was the time to make the fight between Artur and David? That should have been the next fight, and that fight would have been a hotter ticket than what David has planned.
Another clear example of how the people in boxing, if they have it their way, will always take the path of least resistance. They will serve you up substitutes instead of what you want.
Nobody, not even with his 2 alphabet titles he now holds, views Zurdo as competing on the same level as either Artur or Dimitri, because Dimitri beat you and Artur beat Dimitri.
And Zurdo didn't beat either of them.
It's just not an adequate substitute, and part of the excitement of seeing David compete as a light heavyweight was the hope that eventually he would fight Bivol, or eventually he would fight Artur Beterbiev. Maybe there's a passing of the torch. I don't know. The fights have to happen.
Except now they won't.
The jump from light heavy up to cruiser is one of the bigger jumps a boxer can make, to where a boxer who moves up isn't likely to move back down. And thus, those fights with Dimitri and Artur are unlikely to happen.
So I hope you're happy, because we're not.